8, 9, 10. Should you wear a lifting belt when doing deadlifts or back squats? Hey, it's Coach Kevin here, and today I want to talk about lifting belts. Whether you should use a lifting belt when doing exercises like a deadlift or a back squat, and if so, how to use one. So let's start here. Should you wear a lifting belt when doing things like deadlifts, squats, or maybe even overhead presses? And the answer is, of course, it depends. So let's talk about the reason why we might wear a lifting belt when performing these exercises. Really what we're doing is this is a tactile cue for us to keep our core braced when we're doing some of these compound lifts. First of all, we want to be able to brace our core in real life when we need to, say, bend over and pick something up that's heavy. We're not always going to be wearing a lifting belt. So first things first is we don't want to always wear a lifting belt or rely on a lifting belt. We're going to talk about when we should, but let's talk about how we brace our core when we don't have a lifting belt and we're lifting, say, moderately heavy or light loads from a deadlift. So what we're going to do is we're going to brace our core. So there are really two ways that we brace our cores when we lift, and there's a natural way, a way we do without a lifting belt, which I'm going to show you here right now, but there's a different way we brace our core when we're wearing a lifting belt. So let's just take a deadlift and talk about how we brace our core. So you've probably heard somebody before give you the cue, you want to brace your core when you're doing a compound lift, really any compound lift. So certainly your squats and your deadlifts. And what that means is you want a nice tight core. So what I like to tell people is imagine somebody's gonna punch you in the stomach. You want to really push out, have that firm set core the entire time you're doing this lift. So in a deadlift, what that means is I'll come down here, I'm in a relaxed state, but before I start this lift, I'm going to tense my entire body for a deadlift, but I'm gonna really concentrate on keeping that nice neutral spine, and again, that nice tight core all the way throughout the movement. Up at the top, I'm still keeping that nice tight core and that nice slow negative, nice tight core. So that core is braced the entire way through that movement. Okay, so that's the bracing technique for moderate, light, and maybe even moderately heavy loads. But what about when this barbell starts to get heavy? And by heavy, I mean what happens when we get into reps 5, 4, 3, certainly when we're talking about doing heavy doubles or heavy singles. So if your programming calls for 3 sets of 3, that's when we might want to consider using a belt. So let's talk about lifting belts. You can see here I have a pretty common lifting belt. This is by a company called Tupood. Absolutely love these folks. I've got a couple of their lifting belts. I like them because they have a lot of cool different designs you can choose from. This is a pretty basic one. It's just got some Nordic runes on there. But I'm going to come right around my belly button, and with this particular kind, you can see it's a Velcro strap. I come in through here, and I'm just going to suck in my gut a little bit. I'm not going to do anything crazy, and I'm going to cinch this. Now that's pretty tight. You can see I can get my thumbs through there, so it's not constricting me. I don't know if you can see, but here are the ends. They're not touching each other, so this belt is about the right size for me. I certainly wouldn't want these overlapping each other, but nor would I want them way out here. So you want a belt that fits you properly. This one fits me just fine. And remember we talked about with our moderate loads, we wanted to brace our core, keep that nice tight core. The same thing applies when we wear a belt, except now I've got this tactile cue. As I push my stomach out, I'm pushing hard on this belt. And I want to keep that pressure on that belt the entire time during this heavier lift. Now this is a light load, but we're going to pretend like this is a very heavy load. So I am going to strain as I lift it as if I were lifting a heavy load. But you can see I've got this belt on nice and tight. All of my deadlift mechanics or squat mechanics for that matter are going to stay the same. Nothing's going to change because I'm wearing a belt. This is just, again, it's that tactile cue that I'm going to push out on the entire time through this motion. So bring that barbell in nice and close, get those hips down, nice neutral spine. I am pushing out hard. You probably see my belly kind of coming over the top of the belt a little bit, really pushing into that belt. Drive up, and back down. So there you go. My advice for folks over 50 is to learn to deadlift and squat without a belt. As you become more advanced and you start working on heavier loads, consider adding in a belt for any time you're working with, say, reps fewer than 5 or 5 or fewer. So again, for those heavier days when you're doing heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, belt can be a great tool.